for joining us for an episode of All About PR. If you're tuning in for the first time, on this podcast, we speak to experts from the field of PR and communication from across the world and bring you an interesting conversation on the subject every week. In this episode, we take on influencer marketing. The influencer and PR community have had a tumultuous relationship ever since they laid eyes on each other. The new romance had its ups and downs. However, in the past couple of years, the influencer community has evolved to add more professionalism and creativity to it. If you are a part of the PR industry, you need to catch up. If you haven't already, that is. Today, we host Pankhuri Harikrishnan, the director of Fetch Consulting, who will speak to us about influencer management. A little bit more about her. She has over 20 years of experience in event, PR, and influencer management. Her expertise in creating new marketing concepts, forging partnerships between brands and opinion leaders, has, quote-unquote, fetched her agency some coveted association between brands, influencers, and media. Her circle of influence stretches across multiple verticals, and every possible brand creating a demonstrable track record of successful creation of organic marketing buzz through engaging content. So let's add her on. Hi, Pankhuri. Welcome to the show.
Hi, guys.
Good to have you here with us today. So before we start, Pankhuri, can you tell us a little more about your journey into influencer marketing? How did you get into this?
So it's a very interesting journey. Actually, I wasn't planning on doing influencer marketing. I just happened to get into it because, I used to work with celebrities back in the day. And I used to run a very successful talent management company called Elite Model Management. Because one had worked with influencers, celebrities at that point, one understand how they worked, how the deals happened. This was something that I always knew. After which I got into PR, and when I started to do something of my own, it seemed to me like the perfect way of putting together everything I know. So there was celebrities that I could work with, there was PR that I understood. I put the two together, and about 3.5 years ago, I started working on this. At that point, it was still not called influencer marketing. I was just doing this by, and I said, if I know this and if I know the other thing, I put the two together. I think there's something very interesting happening there. So that's pretty much how I chanced upon doing it.
So Pankhuri, when did you realize that this is the next big thing?
Well, it took me a year into this to realize that this is going pretty well for just a thought that I had in my head. It started economically make sense. When I approached people with the ideas that I had on, doing this, I realized that people were very open to it. It made sense business-wise. It made sense in terms of the people who I was bringing on board. And about 1 year into the business, I said, this is what my main business is going to be. So, we started out being a communication agency,
Right.
But during the course of 1 year, it became a hardcore content and influencer company, so to say.
Interesting. Interesting to see how that has become the core of your company. It's fascinating to observe how this industry has evolved over the last couple of years in India. It seems to have just exploded. So, you have spent over 2 decades in the industry. I would like to know how you have field evolved in India and how does it stack against the global industry?
So I think the evolution in India has been slightly slower, right? We already saw this happening abroad much earlier than it exploded here in India. There were real people who were making businesses out of creating content on the internet, and they were selling products on the internet. So very early days for us here, I think we were such a celebrity-led country that it took us a little bit of time to get into the groove of understanding that if you create great content on the net and you have engagement, you don't need to be a celebrity, you become a celebrity therefore, right? So it's been the other way around. Earlier it was you have a celebrity, use them for endorsement because of the celebrity status they have. Here it's been the other way around. Someone creative starts to create content, has a point of view, puts themselves in internet space, and then becomes great. So it has been slower in India, but I think it's picking up. It's picked up hugely, obviously, in the last 8 months when we realized that internet has been the only medium where people are being able to engage and interact. Also, I think the medium in itself is very different from the other mediums we've had in the past. You need to be creative, you need to be impromptu, you need to know the voice that you have. This is not brand endorsement as it used to be back in the day. You need to have something interesting that you want to talk about and show, because it is completely dependent on that you're going to be able to get views, engagement, and hence growth. So it's very interesting in that sense.
That's a fascinating comparison you've drawn there. India has been known for its celebrity obsession. Did your influencers have to challenge that obsession before they were considered celebrities in their own right?
No, I don't think that's a challenge. I think brands have been able to identify fairly quickly now to say that, okay, if I'm going to use a non celebrity, so hence an influencer only, then this is what I get on the table. And if I use a celebrity, then obviously I get the celebrity status that comes with it and also the engagement that I get online. So I think I don't think it's been a challenge. I think people have understood clearly that this is how it's moving and it's a different way of being.
So, this year we have seen a lot of ups and downs, new innovations, new entrants in the social media space. But out of all the social media channels that are out there, which are the ones, according to you, that are most preferred by influencers?
Clearly I see that Instagram is the one that has slowly sort of, done this slowly and steadily, but seems to be the one that's the most stable, right? Of course, we had TikTok, that went through a huge boom. YouTube is there for the more serious content creators, the guys, so, the guys who are really talented, whether it is in comedy, whether it is in music, and they're looking at doing slightly longer form of communication because Insta is short and it's right there and it delivers exactly what you want in a much lesser time. So, yeah, I think these are the platforms that have been keeping everybody engaged. I do see, while we're working here, we do realize that sometimes people are doing very well on Insta, but to make that move or to make that addition of YouTube is an added challenge because that in itself is fairly different medium. Like the formats are very different. Yeah, mostly these are the ones that I see working very well to keep the influencer space going.
So let's get into the PR space now. Since you have been in both streams and know a fair amount about both, help us understand why influencer marketing should be a part of a PR strategy.
I don't know whether I should say it this way that it should be part of PR strategy. But, being a PR person yourself, we do realize that PR has completely changed from what it used to be many years ago. The number of publications are much lesser. Organic PR, so to say, has really dwindled. And then with the advent of these mediums there where everybody can publish, right? On Instagram and all of these places, we can all be publishers. We can all write and have a voice and an opinion. What happens then is that we have to tread carefully and see how what is the mission that we're sending out. So I do believe that traditional PRs has to continue in its format the way it used to be for whatever it's worth today. Because that will continue. There are still people who want to see themselves in print. There are still tons of people obviously who read newspapers, etc., magazines, etc., and that happens. The reason we need to look at influence, and I don't know, by the way, whether it's part of PR, because I do believe that it's actually now a completely different solution. Influencers coming on board to create buzz for brands. I think it's a completely different space altogether because it's quick and easy communication. It's there. It's got the medium itself is different. There's video, there's pictures, there's people who are creating it themselves. It's very different from PR as we knew it. So I do believe that they need to go hand in hand for any brand that is looking to create buzz. Does it become part of PR? I don't know. I'm still to answer that question actually to myself.
So let me rephrase that, Influencer marketing is still in a very nascent stage in India, I believe. Who, in your experience, is better suited to handle it? A PR agency, a digital agency, or a specialized influencer marketing agency?
So I do believe that people need to be equipped in handling influencer marketing. And I don't think just because we do PR, we can very easily move into this. No, because the medium is absolutely different. When we started, while I understood the other side of it, while I understood how to manage celebrities, how to work with them, how to create content with them, I didn't know how to actually look at how I will be looking at impact and what is the ROI. Those are things that I had to learn and I had to bring the right people on board to be able to do a complete 360 on influencer management itself. So influencer programs are not just, hey, I'll give you this product, talk about it, and then we are done. And starting from what is required for this campaign, who are the right people, what is the reach that I expect to have for this, what is the engagement that I can say I will arrive at, and what is the creative way of me being able to communicate this. So it's almost, I feel like it's closer to advertising than it is to PR, by the way. So in the sense that you're being given a brief and you've been told, now please go out and make content on this so that people can see it. So I was just saying that hence I feel that you need completely different skill sets for this. You need people who know how to tell a story and can see it. You need to have a team that is constantly doing analysis on who are the top influencers today, what are the influencers in their own category, how do we do a mix of influencers in the given budget to be able to communicate rightly. I think that is the key here. It is not about, okay, I know these 10 people, let me send them products and they will post about it and I'm done. No, it's gone beyond that.
Okay, so that brings me to my next question. Let's say if PR professionals want to upskill, I do believe that, because PR professionals are very good at storytelling and content creation, they have an edge over the others, because if they were to upskill, I think they can get this. But when you say that there is a different skill set that is required to be able to reach up to that level. So I want to understand from you, what are the top skill sets that you would advise PR professionals to kind of get so that they can move towards influencer marketing, adding influencer marketing to their kitty?
I think they need to hire people who understand the medium. They need to hire people, or they need to associate with other agencies who understand how to evaluate the final output or an outcome of whatever program that is being run by them. Because the end of the day, you know how like we do in PR, saying this has been the achievement and this into X times is what we have been able to deliver for you. I mean, there's always been a metrics, right, for being able to say this was PR campaign that did really well. In the same space, because this gets slightly technical, you need technical people who are giving you the final answer on, okay, they did this is what was achieved. I think that is and those are people who are not particularly PR people. These are people who are actually digital people. So I think we definitely, and these are all these younger kids who are very good at doing this. They understand it so well that, while I'm sitting here, I see them calculate engagements, returns, etc. beautifully. And I think we definitely need to have that skill set in-house if we are looking to do this seriously. Then, finding people who can also be multitaskers, in the sense what happens is over here, it's a lot about, are you able to see the campaign on the whole, starting from, like I said, identifying influencers. So you need to have teams who are doing that. You need to have teams who have their relationships with the influencers. Then you need to have teams who are able to creatively able to deliver a campaign. And third would be, are we able to create somebody and are we able to take the entire thing through in terms of the last mile of saying this is what we delivered. So I think these are the three crucial things you need to be able to run an influencer program for any of the clients.
Absolutely. And if you don't know these skills, then you better hire a specialist who does.
Hire the specialists. I think there are tons of these young kids out there who understand it. They also, intrinsically know this stuff. So they have had some experience earlier and they understand the mediums, they understand how it works. It's just much easier. I mean, I'm constantly learning from the team that I hire, who's much younger, right? But they understand this medium because it literally looks like, they are born into it, as opposed to us having to learn this again. So yes, I think that is definitely required. And once that is in place, it's a good start. See, it also gets more technical later in terms of other technical stuff that brands require you to deliver. But to start with, I think these are good things to have.
Does influencer marketing work better for different verticals or a specific vertical as compared to others? For example, is it more convenient for lifestyle as compared to technology? Has that been your experience?
Plunge into this because, that's how it started. It started with, lifestyle actually taking the first plunge into this, because it actually lent itself very easily to lifestyle. But more and more you see that there are people who are becoming, are creating space for themselves in the Instagram world where they speak about other things. So now we see that health is a big one, right? It's not just lifestyle. There are so many people who are talking about health and people are willing to engage and understand what's going on there. So I think it's moved from just lifestyle to even more, for lack of a better word, serious articles. There are people who are talking on technology. There's constant chatter about what is the new way forward in technology. And there are experts who are leading the way. Of course, like I said, health and wellness, mental health, huge conversations around that in the social space. Yeah, so I don't think it's limited to lifestyle anymore. It may have started out like that because it was just easier.
Talk to me about your personal experience. Which are the easiest and the most challenging verticals to deal with?
We work a lot with alcohol.
Right.
And it's a very difficult vertical to deal with because of all the challenges that we have in the country as regards to communication and advertising for alcohol. So we were, in fact, one of the first few agencies that found interesting ways of communicating on this platform before others jumped on the wagon. So what we had started doing 3.5 years ago is actually, creating experientials which were bespoke and curated. And then I would use content out of that to speak on Instagram. And I'm saying this 3.5 years ago, where people still were trying to understand what influencers are. We would look at interesting ways of weaving the brand into the story that we were telling without it looking very obviously like we were promoting a certain brand or alcohol brand to say. And it got us fabulous results. It was difficult to crack. We were the first in the space to do it. I today see that all companies are doing it. But back in the day, we were really the ones who started this and paved the way for it. And it still continues to be difficult to navigate because, see, now what happens is obviously even the consumer on the social space has become very, very discerning. The minute you have something that's in your face, they just click to the next. So you're not, so those engagements have dropped. You have to be very careful and sensitive in how you're communicating. So I don't know whether, so one is that, this was a challenge for us right in the beginning, and we felt like alcohol was a difficult space to work with, but we managed to do it really well. I feel the challenge today is not vertical related. The challenge today is how are you communicating so that you can keep the consumer engaged, because the consumer has become very, very smart. And if you're going to have products in their face, and you have someone literally showcasing one product after the other, they lose that immediately, and they move to the next interesting thing that looks more organic. So I think the challenge now is how do you make it look authentic and organic for anything that you're trying to speak about on social media.
That is indeed a very interesting example. And now I want more. Can you share a little more about an influencer marketing campaign that you did for an unconventional vertical?
Yeah, we did a very interesting thing in the lockdown actually. We had toothpaste brand that wanted to talk to the audience, and they were very interesting because they didn't want to talk about the toothpaste openly with people brushing or people saying I use this, which was really such a relief. They wanted to just speak about the experience of food on eating and what we go through and what the sensations we go through when we eat hot and cold food. It was very smartly done. We had the brand tag come in right in the end. We worked with about 8 chefs on this, all big chefs, and it was very interesting. They were left to do their own creative bit. They were just told to either make a hot thing or a cold thing, because we know that has sensations and etc. on the teeth. They go through the entire thing. People are watching them because people watch chefs because they cook. And in the end, we just said that we sort of had a conversation around sensitive teeth and what hot and cold food can do for you. It was very, very interestingly done, where the problem is today, social media, they want to create ads with influencers. I keep telling them then that is not the medium, because it is so obvious that people will just click and move to the next thing. You need to be able to tell your story in a way that I want to listen to it. But there are lots of nice brands who do it so interestingly that you listen to the whole story because there was something more that they were trying to tell, apart from just saying, please use my product.
What are the top things that you would want a brand to know before they start an influencer marketing campaign?
Brands should know what they want to achieve out of this. And we're constantly asking brands to say, explain to us how you would see this impacting whatever is your larger marketing goal. This is a medium that is going to give you goals. You cannot compare what you will get here to, say, for instance, what you were going to do if you created this one ad on television.
Right.
This is not apples to apples that way. This is a different medium, and you have to treat it like that. I think so. We want brands to understand that when I am creating, what they forget is that an influencer's page is their own page. People come there because they have a voice of their own and they like to hear that voice. Now, if that influencer was to talk about a certain product, they must talk about it in their own voice. The minute you try to change that, everybody's confused. The people who came to the platform to hear that particular person is confused because that person is not talking like himself or herself.
Absolutely.
That's what brands need to understand. So, when we're saying, hey, use these 5 influencers, first and foremost, we expect brands to understand and do a little bit of an research to say, yes, I do believe that this person fits the product that I'm going to be talking about. Otherwise, it's a forced fit and people are not watching it. So, we can only tell the clients as much when we try and tell the clients that, if there has been a subtle talk of brand, or if there is a solid reasoning for why this person has said they're using this brand, that is when you will get traction, not because you want to push your agenda of show my product like this, now show them sipping it, now show them wearing it. It's a very discerning market out there. Everybody knows what they are watching. They just move to the next thing. And then brands come to us and say, oh, but you said the reach would be this much, but it wasn't. I said, but yeah, you had the brand. In that 1 minute video, the brand was there 6 times. How are you going to get that sort of a reach or an engagement? So that, I think some brands are very good with it and some brands are still learning to understand.
So what are the top things that you would want influencers to keep in mind when they're looking at, running a campaign for a brand? Because I believe that is equally essential.
Yes, it is. So what influencers need to keep in mind before they say yes to a brand is that there will be, and I hope that whoever they are working with and dealing with have been able to clearly explain to them what is required. Once that has been done, I think they need to stick to what they have agreed to. I think a lot of challenges that people are facing, I believe, in the market are that they agree something with influencers, and a lot of times the influencers are not giving them that. I think that is happening because of two reasons. Also a lot of these influencers who become big very quickly were doing organic content, something that they were doing on their own. It worked really well. The minute you put the pressure of a brand on them, sometimes they're not able to understand how to take it forward. The influencer and whoever's managing them or whoever's working with them needs to understand. So, we have some very young talent that we have started to work with. We absolutely at this moment do not bring them any branded work because we don't think they're ready. We get a lot of calls for that. Every other day we have a call saying, can we use this boy for such and such campaign? But we don't believe they are ready to take on branded content simply because it also requires a lot of commitment from their end to be able to fulfill that commitment. They may not be ready. They may be just great people on the net, getting their followers going up by the day, having great engagement. Are they ready for branded work yet? Maybe not.
So you help them polish their skills to be ready for a brand engagement as well?
Yes, we do. We manage some of the big influencers that we do. We have in the past year also started to create a roster of younger, cooler, fun content creators who are being worked with in a way that they can eventually look at doing branded content. But for now is just content for Instagram. That's it. So I think what people need to know is that when the influencers need to know is that when they take on branded content, there's a commitment that they need to fulfill. It is not about them doing their own video saying, oh, this didn't work and chalo, I'll do something else tomorrow. No, it's a commitment you've made. So you need to put 100% and see how you bring value to what you agree.
This question I have to ask you. Gifting. When does it work? When does it not? What are the protocols that a PR professional or a brand must follow before implementing this?
Gifting was very unique when it started. Again, everybody overdid it. The influencers realized that, they were possibly being used to promote something in the garb of a gift, to be very honest. And I think it went downhill from there. So I think gifting is something that, again, now needs to be done strategically. If you're looking to create impact from it, if you're looking to just have your product reach the right people, then it's still a good thing. Like, how we would also do PR gifting back in the day. You would send people gifts if there was a new product that we launched. They didn't necessarily have to write about it or talk about it. If it reached them, that it reached the right person and there was a certain brand connect that had been made. From that purpose, gifting continues to be very effective. But if you're looking to create engagement with it, then there needs to be a strategy. I have now, been reading how agencies are just, even without calling, just sending lots of gifts and products to influencers because they have their addresses and they expect for it to be spoken about. I don't think that's the right strategy at all. It's in fact very deterring for the brand. Also, you have to see whether that product fits with that person. Did you call that person and check whether they're happy to receive that product? I think it is critical that you have that one conversation rather than just doing blind gifting. Just blind gifting because someone has a list of addresses is not the way it's going to work.
I don't think blind gifting is welcome kind of a practice even in PR.
Not at all. That's what I'm saying, right? Even in our PR days, we would call people and say, I'm sending this to you. Hope. And, they'd say, yeah, like, for instance, if you're sending a box of chocolates to someone and the other person says, hey, listen, don't send it to me. We don't do chocolates. We don't eat chocolates. It's done that way, right? So simply, you need to take permission from a person A before you send it to them. Be very clear about what you're doing this for. If you just want them to have the product, it's great. If you're also expecting deliverables, please be very clear in your conversation. And the influencers today are very clear also. They tell you, I will not do it. I'm sorry, I cannot do a story or a post on this. Then you have to be prepared for it. It can't be, let's say, a sort of a bullying where you say, hey, you've got the product now, I need you to story. It can't work like that. And the third thing, like you said, end of the day, if the whole day they're making stories of the 100 free products they've got, then when exactly are they going to get content that pays their bill?
So we are running out of time, and I'm going to address my last set of questions on the topic. Share with us your biggest learnings when you entered the field.
My biggest learning. I'm still learning. Every day I'm learning new things because honestly, this space is evolving on a daily basis. We have to keep ourselves abreast, keep learning new things. The algorithms change, the way things move around the world change. So I think we're learning every day. It's a very new and an interesting space. And there's lots to understand about it.
Okay, let me rephrase that. Your biggest surprises when you first entered the field?
In the most positive way, my biggest surprises have been, how amazing it can be when you actually have a campaign that works beautifully and organically well. It's amazing to see how you make a certain video, and suddenly when you wake up the next day, you see that so many people have consumed it and so many people have such amazing things to say about it. It's been a great surprise because it's right there. If you've done something well, you get immediate returns. It's very nice in that sense. So that's been a great surprise, and I live for it. And I live for creating content, and I live for creating campaigns that have done really well, and then we're able to sit back and say, oh, all right, didn't think it would be like this, but this is wonderful.
Okay, what are the 3 things that frustrate you about this field?
Okay, so what's frustrating is I think everybody has now gotten into the rut of post story reels, money, so many seconds videos, so many minutes edits. I think somewhere we're completely losing where we started to say that it was a great organic medium. There's nothing organic, and I think that's very frustrating because sometimes I may have a great product, sometimes I may have a great idea, but we're not able to do it because suddenly we're only weighing things in, what do I get for this? If I do it like this, then I need to be pay this much. I'm not saying we don't need to pay. Of course, we need to pay people, but I think people need to look a little beyond that. They need to be excited by the idea of doing it. And every time we get someone who's excited by something, we realize that the products that come out are amazing, both for the brand and for the influencer. So I think that joy is sometimes missing because we've become so crazy about what are we achieving both ways, whether it's in numbers, whether it's in money. And sometimes we're losing sight of, how beautifully, creatively we can do something.
Absolutely. So, what would you change about this field if you could?
What would I change? I would, honestly like for all of us to keep understanding that the medium is so interesting that we all need to keep our eyes on that and keep working in a way that it benefits all. In the sense, an influencer is very good at influencing as long as they're doing stuff that's engaging, right? So
Right.
sometimes they need to keep that focus to say, well, yes, branded content, yes, paid stuff, but could I do this way for it to continue to stay interesting for me? Because I feel somewhere along the line, like there are some influencers I've completely stopped following because I know it's just going to be one paid product after another. They're not even putting the effort of making it look how they had started out once. So this is a
Right.
journey, and we're all in it. So I think somewhere we all need to keep getting back to that. And it would be very interesting if brands allowed creativity in this medium. Like I said, the medium allows for it. It's such an amazing dynamic medium. We need for brands to trust people that they're working with, allow them their own creative freedom. When that doesn't happen, we've seen often that the product out that's finally out is not great or too plump.
Isn't it oxymoronic in that sense? Because brands would come to an influencer marketing agency or go to influencers because they want them to add their take on it, right? Make sure that there is
Well,
more.
that's how they all start. Well, that's how all briefs begin. It exactly starts like this. They all say we want influencers, we want them to tell them in their own voice. But when we go back with our creative work, it's always saying, oh, but you haven't put the logo here, but you haven't put the product here. You haven't said it in so many words that this needs to be used. So they confuse it for being an ad, like in the literal sense, like how it used to be
Right.
back in the day. And then it's a fight.
What keeps you here?
The rush of doing this, it's like I said, it's changing every day. There are new things to learn, and every day when we wake up we see that, oh, there is someone who created some great content, and how do we do something as interesting as that? Or look at the way this brand told their story, we'd like to do this for a brand. So I actually get up, and if I see that if I feel like I have an idea that I want to pitch to a brand, I actually pick up the phone and do it. And more often than not, we've been successful in bringing in, even if it's a small amount of business, because we have belief that if they give us a story to tell, we tell it very interestingly. So one is saying, hey, I want to be able to do this for a product, or the other way, I love the way this influencer tells a story. How do I make sure that I work with this influencer? So the minute I have an idea or a brand that is looking for something similar, I love to put them together. So the whole rush of doing new things every day, because every day it's a new campaign, new idea, new people. There are new influencers coming out every day, right? Every day you find new content, and you're very energized because, oh my God, this is such a great way of doing this. So that's what keeps us going, the newness of it all, actually.
Awesome. It was lovely having this conversation with you, Pankhuri. I think all of our listeners would learn a lot when they listen to this. Thank you so much for spending time today with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. And I do hope that I've been able to shed some light on how this influencer market industry is evolving.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much.
So that was Pankhuri Harikrishnan giving us an insight into the exciting and highly creative world of influencer management. I hope you enjoyed the session as much as I did. Would also like to give a shout out to the good folks at PRPOI. This episode was brought to you via a special arrangement with them. Thank you again for tuning in today, and we will see you next week for another interesting conversation from the world of communication.